I never thought my life would become the kind of story people whispered about, the kind that makes you question who truly values you for who you are and who only sees what you can offer. But it all began on a quiet evening in my small town, where my simple world clashed with someone who thought it wasn't good enough. See, I've never been rich. I don't live in a big house, and I don't drive fancy cars. My life is built on routine, hard work, and finding joy in the little things, like fixing up old furniture, cooking meals from scratch, and watching the sunset over the same dusty fields I've known since I was a kid. To me, that's enough. But to her, it was something to laugh at. She came into my life like a storm, elegant, polished, and sharp-tongued. The kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone stare, not just because she was beautiful, but because she carried herself like she owned the place. And when she looked at me, with my plain clothes and rough hands, she didn't hide her smirk. She mocked my simple life every chance she got, making me feel like my world was nothing but scraps compared to hers. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself her words didn't matter. After all, people who truly matter don't make you feel small. But it's strange how even the strongest walls can crack when the same insult hits again and again. Each laugh, each sneer, each careless word chipped away at me, making me wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe my life wasn't enough. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that behind her sharp voice and dismissive eyes stood someone else. Someone who saw me differently. Someone who would change the course of my story in ways I never imagined. Because while she mocked my life, her sister watched. Quietly, carefully, not with pity, but with a kind of curiosity, almost as if she wanted to understand why I found happiness in places others overlooked. I noticed her at the edges, the way her eyes softened when I spoke, the way she didn't laugh when others did. And though she never said much in those moments, I could feel it, an unspoken connection slowly building, like the first spark before a flame. Still, I didn't know what to make of it. All I knew was that every encounter with the one who mocked me left a sting that lingered long after she was gone. And every silent glance from her sister carried a weight I couldn't explain. Little did I know, those two sisters would become the center of a storm that would tear apart everything I thought I understood about love, pride, and the value of a simple life. And the choice I'd be forced to make between them would change everything. To understand how everything unfolded, you need to know where I come from. I grew up in a town so small you could drive through it in less than 10 minutes. Everyone knew everyone. We didn't have shopping malls or tall buildings, just fields, dirt roads, and a handful of family-owned stores that kept the community alive. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And in that honesty, I found comfort. My father was a carpenter. He taught me how to work with my hands, how to shape raw wood into something useful, something beautiful. My mother, on the other hand, believed in simplicity. She always said, "Happiness isn't bought, it's built." Those words stuck with me, even as I grew older and watched friends leave for bigger cities, chasing dreams that came with flashing lights. I stayed behind, carrying on my father's trade, building furniture for neighbors, fixing broken fences, and taking pride in the small but steady life I created. And then she appeared. Her name was Vanessa. She wasn't from around here. She came with her family during the summers, staying in a large, modern house her father had built just outside town. Compared to us, they seemed untouchable. They drove shiny cars, wore clothes that cost more than my entire month's earnings, and carried themselves like royalty visiting peasants. From the start, Vanessa made it clear she didn't fit here. And she reminded me of that every chance she got. "Still working with your hands? Huh," she'd sneer. "You must really enjoy being covered in sawdust." Her words were sharp, laced with the kind of laughter that cut deeper than she realized. To her, I wasn't someone worth knowing. I was just a symbol of everything she thought she was above. But where Vanessa carried herself like fire, her sister, Claire, was different. She was quieter, softer, like the calm after a storm. Claire didn't talk much at first, but her eyes said everything. She noticed details others overlooked, the way I carefully measured wood before cutting, the way I paused to admire a finished piece, the way I smiled at small things like the smell of fresh rain. It was almost unsettling how much she seemed to see through me, when her sister never saw me at all. The more time passed, the more obvious their differences became. Vanessa made me feel small, but Claire made me feel human. One tore me down, The other lifted me without even trying. Yet, standing between the two of them was like living in the middle of a tension I didn't understand. I didn't know what role either sister would play in my life, but something inside me whispered that my path was already tangled with theirs. Every laugh from Vanessa was a reminder of what I wasn't. Every glance from Claire was a reminder of what I could be. And soon, I'd be forced to face a choice that neither of them saw coming. The real conflict began the summer Vanessa decided to stay in town longer than usual. She wasn't just passing through anymore. She was everywhere. At the cafe, at the market, even walking by my workshop with that same mocking smile that made me clench my fists in silence. It wasn't just the words she threw at me. It was how she made me feel invisible, insignificant. She'd laugh with her friends about my old truck, about the way I wore the same boots every day, about how men like me would never understand what real success looked like. And the worst part? People listened. Some even laughed with her. Suddenly, it felt like her voice was louder than mine in a town I'd called home my whole life. But in those same days, Claire's presence grew stronger too. She'd stop by when Vanessa wasn't around, curious about my work. "Show me how you carve the edges," she'd say softly, leaning in with genuine interest. Her voice didn't carry judgment, it carried warmth. She'd sit quietly, watching as I shaped wood, asking questions that made me realize she wasn't just passing time. She was learning me. That's when the confusion began. How could two sisters, raised under the same roof, see me in such completely opposite ways? One made me doubt everything I was. The other made me believe I had something worth giving. I found myself drawn to Claire's calmness, her quiet strength. But the louder Vanessa mocked me, the harder it became to ignore her shadow. The tension grew until it was impossible to pretend nothing was happening. One evening at a town gathering, Vanessa's voice cut through the chatter. "Can you believe he still thinks making chairs is a future?" She laughed, her friends joining in. My face burned, anger boiling in my chest. But before I could speak, a voice rose from the crowd. It was Claire, and the words she spoke would change everything. The moment Claire's voice rose in that crowded hall, the air shifted. Everyone turned, the laughter froze, and for the first time, Vanessa's smug confidence cracked. "She's wrong," Claire said firmly. Her eyes locked on her sister, but her voice meant for everyone. "There's more dignity in his hands than in all your money combined." Silence. You could hear the creak of the wooden floor beneath our feet. My heart pounded in my chest, not because of the insult thrown at me, but because Claire, quiet, gentle Claire, had just stood up to Vanessa in front of half the town. Vanessa's face flushed crimson. She stammered, searching for words, before snapping back. "What would you know, Claire? You've never wanted more than this dull little town. You're just as small as he is." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My hands tightened, my jaw locked, but Claire didn't back down. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. She simply turned, her eyes meeting mine for a moment that stretched longer than it should have. In that silent exchange, I felt it. The storm wasn't just between me and Vanessa anymore. It was between sisters. After that night, everything changed. Vanessa's hostility grew sharper. Every glance at me dripped with bitterness, not just for who I was, but for the way her sister seemed to drift closer to me. And Claire? She began visiting my workshop more often, asking me to teach her, wanting to build something with her own hands. I showed her how to sand wood, how to stain it, how to see beauty in imperfection. She laughed when she made mistakes, and I laughed with her. Slowly, carefully, we carved something more than furniture together. We carved trust. But whispers spread quickly in a small town. People began to talk. They noticed Claire lingering too long at my side, noticed Vanessa's glare whenever she caught sight of us. Some warned me quietly, "Careful. You don't want to be the reason those sisters turn against each other." And deep down, I feared they were right. Because the more time I spent with Claire, the more my heart betrayed me. Yet, with every step closer to her, Vanessa's resentment burned hotter. She wasn't just mocking me anymore. She was watching me, waiting, like a storm building on the horizon. Her silence became more dangerous than her laughter ever was. One evening, as the sun dipped below the fields, I found Claire still in my workshop, her hands stained with sawdust, her smile softer than the glow of the lantern. For a moment, it felt like the world outside didn't exist. But then, the door creaked open, and standing there was Vanessa. Her eyes weren't playful this time. They weren't mocking. They were dark, filled with something I had never seen before. And in that silence, I knew something was about to break. The night Vanessa stood in my doorway, time seemed to stop. The faint light of the lantern flickered against her face, shadows cutting sharp lines across her eyes. She didn't smirk, didn't laugh, didn't even blink. She just stood there, staring at me, and then at Claire. Claire's hand was still resting on the workbench beside mine, sawdust clinging to her fingertips. I felt her fingers twitch slightly, as if she wanted to pull back, but couldn't. The silence stretched, heavy enough to suffocate. Vanessa finally spoke. "So this is what you've been doing," she said coldly, her voice low, almost trembling with restrained anger. "Wasting time in this shack." Claire straightened, her face calm, but her shoulders stiff. "It's not a waste of time," she said softly. "It's real." Those two words sliced through the air. Real. Not fake. Not shallow, real. And for a moment, I thought Vanessa might actually explode. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting between us. The weight of unspoken accusations filled the space. The days that followed only fueled the fire. Vanessa became unpredictable, sometimes pretending nothing had happened, other times throwing cruel remarks sharper than before. But what unsettled me most wasn't her insults, it was her silence. The way she'd watch me when she thought I wasn't looking. The way her smile would vanish the second her eyes fell on Claire. Meanwhile, my connection with Claire deepened in ways I hadn't planned for. She wasn't just curious anymore. She was invested. She wanted to build something of her own. One afternoon, she looked up from a half-carved piece of wood and said, "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to build a whole life with your own two hands?" Her words shook me, not because I didn't understand them, but because I did. Too well. But in a town where gossip traveled faster than the wind, we couldn't hide forever. Whispers spread, about Claire spending too much time with me, about Vanessa's temper boiling over. People started watching us differently. Some smiled knowingly. Others shook their heads, warning me with their eyes. I tried to keep my distance, but Claire wouldn't let me push her away. "You can't live your life afraid of what she'll do," she told me once, her voice steady but her eyes vulnerable. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But then came the night of the Harvest Festival. The whole town gathered, music filling the air, lanterns swaying in the warm breeze. I thought maybe, just maybe, things could be normal for one evening. Claire laughed beside me, her smile brighter than the lights strung across the square. And that's when I felt it, that piercing stare cutting through the crowd. I turned, and there was Vanessa, standing alone, her gaze locked on us. But this time, she wasn't angry. She was smiling. And somehow, that smile scared me more than all her insults combined. That smile haunted me. It wasn't cruel or mocking. It was calculated, like she knew something I didn't. And I was right. The very next day, rumors swept through town like wildfire. Vanessa had been talking, not just about me and Claire spending time together, but about a deal. A deal I knew nothing about. She told people I'd been using Claire, that I was after their family's money, that every glance, every word, every moment had been part of some twisted plan. Her voice carried, and in a place where whispers spread faster than truth, people believed her. But that wasn't the twist. The real blow came later that evening, when Claire showed up at my workshop, eyes filled with tears I'd never seen before. "She's not just spreading lies," Claire whispered, her voice breaking. "She found a way to make them true." I stared at her, confused, my heart thudding in my chest. "What do you mean?" Claire swallowed hard, looking at me with a mix of fear and guilt. "She told Father you asked me to marry you. And he agreed." My world tilted. Vanessa hadn't just mocked my life. She was trying to control it. When Claire told me about her father's agreement, the ground beneath me seemed to crack. I hadn't proposed. I hadn't even spoken to him. Yet Vanessa had twisted the truth so tightly that everyone now believed I had. I stormed to their house that night, determination burning hotter than fear. The family sat in the grand living room, her father stern and upright, Vanessa lounging with that smug, victorious smirk, and Claire pale with worry. "Why would you tell people I asked for her hand?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Vanessa didn't flinch. "Because you should. Isn't that what men like you want? A way out of the dirt?" Her father cut in sharply. "Vanessa told me everything. She says you've been leading Claire on. If you truly care for her, marry her. If not, leave her before you ruin her name." The words hit like a hammer. Claire's eyes filled with pain, but she stepped forward. No, this isn't his doing. It's yours, Vanessa. You've been trying to destroy him from the start. For a moment, the sisters stood face to face, the air thick with years of unspoken rivalry. Then Vanessa's composure cracked. Her voice rose, sharp and desperate. I did it because you always get what I want, Claire. Always. The room froze. Her confession spilled into the silence, shattering the mask she'd worn for so long. Claire gasped. Her father's jaw tightened, and I finally understood. This wasn't about me. It was about them. A war between sisters where I was just the weapon. But before I could speak, Vanessa turned to me, her eyes glistening with something I couldn't name. Anger, envy, maybe even longing. If you walk away with her, you'll regret it. She doesn't understand you the way I do. The final twist cut deeper than any insult ever had. Beneath all her cruelty, Vanessa hadn't just mocked me. She had wanted me. And now, I was trapped between the truth of Claire's love and the storm of Vanessa's obsession. For a long moment after Vanessa's outburst, no one spoke. The room felt heavy, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the bitterness of her words. Claire's father sat in stunned silence, torn between two daughters who had just exposed the cracks in their family for everyone to see. I looked at Vanessa, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the polished, untouchable girl who mocked my life. I saw someone drowning in jealousy, in pride, in the desperate need to feel superior because deep down, she felt small. Vanessa, I said quietly, you don't want me. You just don't want anyone else to have me. Her eyes flickered, the truth hitting her harder than she wanted to admit. But instead of answering, she turned away, her mask slipping back on, though the cracks were now too visible to hide. Claire stepped forward then, her hand finding mine. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. That single gesture said more than any argument could. It was a choice. A choice not to fight fire with fire, not to stoop to her sister's level, but to hold on to something real. Her father sighed, his voice softer than before. If this is what you both want, then it should be your decision. Not mine. And certainly not Vanessa's. Relief washed through me, though I knew this wasn't the kind of story where everyone walked away happy. Vanessa's glare told me her war wasn't truly over. But for now, the battle was done. In the weeks that followed, Claire and I continued building together. Not just furniture, but dreams. We spent hours in the workshop, laughing over uneven cuts and celebrating the small victories of each project. The whispers in town never fully stopped, but with time, they quieted. People began to see us not as a scandal, but as a pair, two people who had chosen each other despite everything. As for Vanessa, she drifted further away. Some said she left town for good, chasing the glittering life she always thought she deserved. Others claimed she'd return one day, different, changed. I didn't know. Maybe I never would. What I did know was this. My simple life, the life she once mocked, had given me something money couldn't buy. It gave me someone who saw me, not for what I lacked, but for what I was. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? In a world obsessed with bigger, shinier, louder, sometimes the most extraordinary thing is simply finding someone who believes in you, exactly as you are. Claire and I didn't build castles or fortunes. We built a life, a real one. And for me, that was more than enough. 37.